Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. The webinar is going to kick off just in a minute or so here, just giving folks the chance to connect. Hi, everybody. Just giving everyone a couple of seconds here to get connected to the webinar today before we get going. All right. As I know that, schedules are busy, I'm just going to dive into a few introductory remarks here at the top before we get going. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to ARMA's EPR webinar series. Today's session is an ARMA Connect producer demo supported by our partners at PwC. My name is Kayla Duty, and I'm a communications manager with Canadian Strategy Group. It is my pleasure to serve as facilitator and moderator for the webinar today. And I would like to start us off with a land acknowledgement. ARMA works with Albertans from all areas of our province and acknowledges the Indigenous peoples who lived among and traveled the land in the area currently known as Alberta. The relationship that peoples of Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, Alberta's Métis and Inuit people have with the land is founded on a deep respect for the environment. This connection forms the foundation of our responsibility and vision of inspiring a future without waste. Our webinar today will provide a comprehensive demonstration of the supply reporting process within the ARMA Connect system. Designed specifically for producers who will be submitting supply reports through ARMA Connect, we hope the presentation and discussion today will demystify the supply reporting process and empower stakeholders with the necessary knowledge and tools for seamless report submission. During the session, we will walk you through the step-by-step process of submitting supply reports via ARMA Connect, ensuring clarity and understanding every step of the way. To keep the time moving along nicely today, we plan to follow prior webinar settings where registrant audio functionality has been turned off. So that means if you would like to ask a question, we invite you to use the Q&A chat where questions will be addressed. A reminder as well that these webinar sessions are being recorded and they'll be made available on the ARMA website afterwards. So with that being said, I will now turn it over to ARMA's Director of EPR Operations and Change Optimization, Victor Dong. Over to you, Victor.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Kayla. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor. I have with me Tanuj Gulati, who is from our PwC partner, and together we will be going over your obligations with the upcoming supply reporting. So we'll talk about both the process to meeting your obligations in the next couple of months, as well as providing you a demonstration of the actual system today. So next slide, please. Over the next 2 months, there are 3 critical dates that for you as producers within the EPR system should be mindful of. First is the verification plan submission with a deadline that was April 1st. So while this date has recently passed, we are still actively assisting producers to fulfill this obligation. So today we'll explore the available options to satisfy this requirement. Another route to meet both the verification plan and reporting obligation is to delegate these responsibilities to a pro. And it's essential that these delegations are current in the system by May 31st so that your pro can seamlessly handle your obligations. And we'll spend a bit of time today to look at what that looks like in the system and how you can set that up for you if that's something you're looking to do. Finally, we will address your supply reports, which is due by June 30th of this year. This covers both 2022 and 2023 report periods. And in today's session, we will examine the requirements for these supply reports for the year and guide you through the submission process in the ARMA Connect system and ensuring that you're well prepared and confident in fulfilling these obligations. Next slide, please. So based on the dates highlighted in the previous slide, let's take a look at the steps required to meet the regulations for Alberta. Next slide. We will start with the verification plan requirements. So the April 1st deadline applies specifically to producers within the single-use products, packaging, and paper products, or PPP stream. For producers handling hazardous and special products, or HSP, your deadline is actually not until October 1st. So while this deadline is later, you can anticipate a process similar to what we're discussing today for PPP producers. Next slide, please. So as a producer, there is 3 ways for you to meet the verification plan requirement. So first, for direct involvement in the common collection system here in Alberta, producers do have the option to sign an agreement with the operators of the PPP common collection system, which is Circular Materials. This route is ideal for those producers wishing to engage with the system without being affiliated with the pro. So while Circular Material is both a pro, they are also the operator of the common collection system, and there is a distinction there for us here in Alberta. Second, if you plan to manage your own collection system, you will need to submit a verification plan for your alternative collection system, and that plan does require approval from us here at ARMA. You will need to submit the plan as soon as possible to facilitate a smooth review process. And finally, the last option is for producers who are looking to work with a pro or producer responsibility organization. And in this case, there is no need for individual submissions. Your pro will take care of the verification plan for all of their affiliated producers. And finally, any producers who do anticipate an exemption due to falling below material thresholds, there is a process to inform us of that. And I'll speak to that in our next slide here. So for the 3 options we have outlined in our previous slide, there's really 2 ways to indicating how you plan on meeting the verification plan requirements. So we are proactively engaging with registered producers who initially indicated they're not working with a pro. And if this is what you've indicated during the time of registration, you can expect to receive what we call a declaration of intent form from us. This form will help you outline your approach to meeting the verification plan requirements. It essentially gives you several options, and those options would be whether you plan on now working with a pro, if you're planning on opting into the common collection system directly, or if you're running an alternative collection system. And the last option there, we do allow you to indicate if you think you will be exempt based on the lower material volumes. That's how you can inform us of that status. That will be subject to confirmation via the supply report. So even though you think you are under the exemption threshold for material, there is still that supply reporting obligation, and that will inform us as the confirmation that you are below the material threshold. If you are planning to collaborate with a pro, but you haven't formalized that agreement, so whether you've indicated to us that you will work with a pro, but you haven't selected a pro, or you haven't done that, or you haven't indicated that, we will send a reminder to finalize this as soon as possible. So if your plans have changed and you now intend to operate without a pro, we will just need you to notify us of that. And that's where we will provide you with the declaration of intent form for you to communicate what your new plan is to meet that verification obligation. Next slide, please. To complete the producer verification plan requirements, eventually one of these 3 criteria will need to be met. So for anyone who is opting into the common collection system directly, you will need to provide proof of the agreement to ARMA. For anyone operating the alternative collection system, you would have submitted your plan, and what you would need is our official approval for that plan. And finally, anyone working with a pro will need to ensure that you do have an agreement with that pro and that's in place and active. The pro will upload that proof of the agreement at the time that your delegation is confirmed, and that is a confirmation in the ARMA Connect system. So for anyone who is working with a pro, that will actually just be set up automatically in the system. And finally, anyone who is exempt due to material threshold, all we need is that declaration of intent that I mentioned in our previous slide. But you do still need to provide the supply reporting in June. And hopefully the way we've designed these is to ensure that compliance is straightforward and transparent for all of you as producers. Slide, please. So before we delve into the specifics of supply reporting, I just want to talk a bit about what the process of pro delegation is. So given the range of obligation that can be delegated, it's imperative that producers have a clear grasp of how to establish your delegation preferences and understand the implication of these settings within our system. So today's webinar will do both a live demo of how the delegation can be set up in the system, as well as the demo of what supply reporting will look like. We will also have comprehensive guides that does outline all of the steps that we do show today, and that will be available later in April. And that will coincide with our system enhancements. So the timing really is to ensure that you'll have all the necessary tools and information at hand to make sure that all of your settings are correct. I will just add a disclaimer that everything you'll see from here onwards, especially in terms of the system, this is a system enhancement that is going live on April 22nd. So you won't access any of these in the system today. This is the rollout that will happen shortly. Next slide, please. So within the ARMA Connect system, you currently have the ability to delegate both supply and management report to your pro. And at time of registration, if you had selected that you're working with a pro, you'd have seen potentially have seen this. Based on some of the feedback we received during some of our consultations, we are updating the system to provide pros with the visibility and the ability to pay for your oversight invoice. And this is really a big driver for our system enhancement that's coming up in April. So the delegation function really is essential to us because it does inform the system and ARMA who's responsible for some of these obligations, whether it's supply report, management report, or the oversight fee. So to make sure that this process is seamless, we will be contacting you in the weeks ahead, in addition to our system launch, to make sure you're well informed of the options that you have, and to make sure that your delegation details are correct and current. So we are hoping that this will provide you with all the information you need to maintain a transparent, accountable, and user-friendly system. Next slide, please. So in the next few slides, we'll kind of look at the various delegation scenarios that you might want to set up for you as an individual producer. So if you are looking to have a pro handle all aspects of reporting on your behalf, you'll need to make sure that the portion that's for your own reporting responsibilities, you've selected no, which essentially would disable that portion of the system, ensuring that the remaining active delegations is set to your pro. So this will make sure that the boundaries between the responsibilities defined in the system, and this will drive what reporting gets generated to whom, and we'll kind of cover that in the supply reporting process. Next slide, please. So in the second scenario, if you're looking to manage your own reporting obligations, you won't need to actually add a pro to your account at all. Or if you do have a pro added, as long as all of their reporting obligations is set to no, that will ensure that your own that you are fulfilling your obligations, and that was what is defined in the system for us. And the default setting, if you don't have a pro, is that you are automatically responsible for your own reporting delegations. So the system will set these to yes, to default for you as a producer if you do not have a pro. Next slide, please. So in the final scenario, you are able to have a combination of delegation options, and this really provides a balance between your direct involvement and the assistance of a pro. So the current screen illustrates one of the many possible combinations. So this certainly isn't the only one. The system is tailored for flexibility. So it does allow you to choose who handles which part of the responsibilities. And you can have both parties. So you as a producer and a pro fulfill the same obligation if that is something you're interested in. So while these choices will influence how reports are generated, it is important to remember that our system is designed to allow for a tailored approach that fits your unique needs. But you can set the preferences between these two to whichever that works best for you. So we'll delve deeper into the implications of these delegation settings a bit more in the supply report. But I will pass it over to Tanuj to see how, to show you how you can do some of these settings in the system itself. Over to you, Tanuj.
Thanks, Victor. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I will switch into our ARMA Connect portal for the next part of our demo. So this is the ARMA Connect portal, but before we begin, I just want to mention that this is our test environment. So things that you will be seeing will be implemented soon into this into the system that you have available with you. So the first scenario for the reporting delegations and the various scenarios that we want to see for the reporting delegations is something that we'll go through right now. For that, I will go ahead and log in as our first producer. So this producer is HSP producer 1. We're going to walk through the HSP scenarios, but this also applies to the PPP scenarios as well. So I'm going to log in as James Smith, who is the representative of our producer. So by clicking log in, I will be taken to the program page where I can go ahead and see that I have the stewardship programs and the EPR programs listed over here. I would scroll down to the EPR section. Now I can see that I am enrolled in the HSP program as a producer, and my status is active. So as soon as ARMA activates your registration for the program, instead of the under review and no action, you would see the homepage action under the manage column over here. So I would go ahead and click into the homepage. Once I do that, there are a bunch of tabs that are available to you. For the scenario of adding a pro to your profile, you would want to go ahead and click on the My Pros tab. There are a few things that you see on this tab over here. So the first thing that you would see is the My Responsibilities table. This is the table where you would indicate the reporting obligations that you are taking care of. In this scenario for HSP Producer 1, the supply reporting and management reporting is set to yes, but I can go ahead and update this. So I can go ahead and click on the update action under the manage column. Here, I would go ahead and select the responsibilities to no, considering that I would be delegating these responsibilities to the pros. Once I go ahead and click no onto the supply report and management report responsibility, I can go ahead and click on confirm. With this, you can see that on the table, it instantly updates your responsibilities to no for the supply report and management report. Now that I do not have any responsibility for the supply report, I can go ahead and add a pro to my profile. So to add the delegations to the pros, I would be interested in this table which is below, which talks about my pros. To add a pro, I do see add new pro button right under the table. I can go ahead and click on that button. When I click on that button, I will be taken to a page where I can select a pro. So once I select into the pro that I want to add, I can see the list of pros that are currently active in the system. Here we can notice that HSP Pro 1 is helping me to report on the single-use batteries and rechargeable batteries designated material. And HSP Pro 2 will be helping me in the other products. So for the first scenario, I'll go ahead and add HSP Pro 1, considering that I need help in reporting these materials. Once I add the pro, I can go ahead and click save and next. This is where I would be indicating the obligations or the responsibilities that the pro would be handling on my behalf. So I can go ahead and click yes for supply reporting, considering that I do need help in reporting batteries as one of the designated materials. I can go ahead and click yes on the management report as well, considering that they would be helping me with the obligation of management report. And the third is the manage payment of oversight fee. For this scenario, I'll go ahead and click no for this delegation. I can go ahead and click confirm my intent to contract this pro to help me manage the reporting and click submit request. As soon as I do that, I can see that the pro table is populated with the HSP Pro 1 that I just added with a status of pending and the responsibilities that I have selected for the pro. Till the time the pro is in the pending status, we can go ahead and update preferences or the responsibilities for the pro. Now, in the process, once the pro is added to your profile, the pro receives an email where they can go ahead and confirm these responsibilities and work with you to get the responsibilities updated if in any case they do not agree with the responsibilities shared with them. So for this scenario, we are going to simulate the activation of the pro where HSP Pro 1 will go ahead and accept these responsibilities. So while that happens, we'll give the system some time to do that. But I will go ahead and add the second pro and come back and see if HSP Pro 1 has been activated. So in the second scenario, I'll go ahead and add HSP Pro 2, who is going to help me with reporting on the other products. So I can go ahead and follow the same process, click Save and Next after selecting the Pro. In this scenario, I'll go ahead and select yes for supply reports, no for the management report. And for this one, I will say yes for manage payment of oversight fee, considering that this Pro will help me manage the payment of the oversight fee. When I select yes, there is an additional consent that I need to verify, which is for the invoice sharing agreement. I can go ahead and click yes to this agreement. Also confirm the intent of contracting this Pro for the responsibilities that I have mentioned above, and go ahead and click submit request. So once I do that, I see that the HSP Pro 2 has been added, and with the similar status of pending that we had for HSP Pro 1, I can go ahead and update these responsibilities till the time the Pro has not acted these responsibilities. We were also able to manage to simulate this activation of the delegation for HSP Pro 1. And I can see that now HSP Pro 1 has accepted my delegation, and I see the pending status change to active over here. Another thing that would happen once the Pro has accepted the delegation is that the producer would receive a confirmation of this acceptance. So I can quickly, so sometimes it does take some time to get that email, but I can pull up an email that I had before to show you how it looks like. So this is how the email would look like, which would mention your registration number, the program, the details of the producer, and also mention that the Pro has accepted the delegation or confirmed the delegation. And it also gives you the dates for the service start date and the responsibilities that you had selected for the Pro. With that, we have wrapped up scenario 1. I'll pass it over back to Victor.
Thank you so much, Tanush, for that demo of the delegation settings for ARMA Connect. So now let's turn our attention to the most important upcoming obligation, which would be supply reporting. So for this year, supply reporting will open on June 1st, and they will be due on June 30th. The compressed deadline is just due to us getting the system up and running. And this year's reporting does include both calendar year 2022 and calendar year 2023 supply data. The report will be generated for each calendar year for each producer, depending on how your delegation preferences are set. And they will be generated for the delegated person. Next slide, please. So like Tanush is showing the system, supply reports will be generated based on your supply report preferences in ARMA Connect. There are 3 possible scenarios on who supply reports will be generated to. So for you as a producer, if you're intending to complete your own supply reports, and that should be reflected in the system as you having your individual supply report responsibility set to yes. And whether you have no pros or that you have set the pros delegation responsibility to no for supply reports, then that supply report, when it's generated, will be generated directly for you as a producer, and you will be expected to complete the supply report. In the second scenario, where you have delegated supply reporting to a pro, the supply report will actually be generated for each pro that has an active delegation with you as a producer, assuming both pros would have the delegation set to yes. So the supply report is considered complete when all parties who are responsible for submitting the supply report has done so. So for example, in HSP, currently we do have 2 active and approved pros within the system, each managing different designated materials. There would be 1 supply report generated for 1 pro and another one generated for the second pro. They would then each complete your reporting obligations for their designated materials, And when both report is submitted, that is when the supply report is considered complete for the year. And finally, the third scenario allows both producer and pro to submit the supply report. So this is where the setting is set to yes for both you as a producer and as a yes for the pro. Our assumption is that this might not be a very common scenario, but our system certainly allows for that flexibility. Similar to the second scenario, the supply report will be generated for each party that has the report setting set to yes within the system. So it will generate an instance for you as a producer. It might generate another one for one or many pros. And your supply reporting isn't complete until all the parties that have generated supply report has submitted them. And of course, all of this data will be reported and aggregated into one set of numbers. And that's what will be used for fee setting later down the road. Next slide, please. So I'll speak a bit to what our supply reporting process look like, and you'll certainly see this in our demo. So for this year, this report will be generated in the system on June 1st. In the future, this will be set to early April, giving you additional time to complete supply reporting. This year really is to accommodate the system enhancements we're making, which now includes both the invoice delegation feature, as well in the previous scenario, an enhancement to the delegation, as well as the supply report itself. There are three key components in the supply reporting process, with an extra step at the start for PPP supply reporting. With PPP supply reports, we do verify that your revenue is still above the exemption threshold, as the reporting obligation is different for any producers under that 1.5 million revenue exemption threshold. And from there, the steps are the same for both PPP and HSP supply reporting. You will report a total amount of designated materials introduced into Alberta for the year. Following that, you'll detail the brand relationships for the designated materials you have introduced. That is an Excel template in our system that you have to download, fill, and upload back as part of supply reporting. And usually you conclude the supply reporting process with our third-party verification document. So for this year, acknowledging the compressed timeline, we have waived the third-party verification requirement. Instead, we will have an attestation template that will be provided within the supply reporting process for your completion. While this year's verification is waived, next year we will be verifying both your 2023 and 2024 supply data in the next cycle, as the validity of the 2023 supply report will drive our fee setting for this year. So it is imperative for us to make sure that is as accurate as possible. So while we have delayed that verification requirement, please do expect that next year. So with that, I will turn it over to Tanuj to show you what the supply reporting process actually looks like in the system. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Victor. Now for that process, let me log out of this HSP producer 1 and log in as our second producer to go over some of the scenarios for supply report. So once I do that, let me log in as Charles Smith, who is our second producer. Again, once I log in, I will be met with the same page where I can scroll to the bottom of my programs page, go into the EPR section. I see that this producer is also active. I do see the home page link. Let me click onto the home page here and land onto the home page for the EPR program. So as soon as I do that, again, I'm met with the same tabs, but this time I'm interested in the supply report. The supply reporting tab, I'll just quickly walk you through as to what you see over here. So the first is the box where you see the number of supply reports that are outstanding your action. For this producer, we do not have responsibility for supply report. We have delegated these responsibilities out to our pros. And that is where you would see these supply reports in the table below. We can quickly go and walk through this table and how to navigate this table. So the first column under the table is the report that is for which calendar year is the supply report. Second column is the responsible party as to which pro is responsible for filling out the supply report, followed by the due date, that is when is the supply report due, followed by the status, that is, has the pro started the supply report, or have they started it and is it in progress, or have they actually submitted the supply report on your behalf. Based on the status, there are a few actions that the pro can take, or you can take as a producer. Before we get into the action, I quickly want to go through the header of this table where we have quick filters that you can use to filter out any of the supply reports that you're looking for. So in case that you want to search for any of the not started supply reports, I can go ahead and click on that not started filter. The table will dynamically filter out the supply reports that are currently not started. I can click out of the filter and also search for any in progress supply reports, where I see there are 2 supply reports which are in progress. I can also go ahead and search for terms for the supply report. So in the case where I want to search for a supply report that is being done by HSP Pro 2, so I can go ahead and add that in the search bar, and it will filter out the supply reports responsible for the Pro 2 over here. Because these supply reports are being done by the pro, you can still view those supply reports in the scenario where the supply report is in progress or if it is submitted. So I can go ahead and click on view for the supply report, and I will see the progress that the pro has made on this supply report. Here I can notice that HSP Pro 1, who's responsible for doing the supply report for the designated material for single-use batteries and rechargeable batteries, has added the volumes for those designated materials. They have also till now added the brand template, but they haven't added the third-party verification yet. Similarly, I can view the progress made by HSP Pro 2 as well. Now for the next scenario, we will log out of this from this producer's account and log in as our third producer. Here we are going to simulate the scenario where the producer themselves are responsible for supply reporting. So let me log in as our third producer. And go through the process of actually submitting a supply report as a producer themselves. So again, going into our program page and navigating to our supply reporting tab. In this scenario, I do see that there are 2 supply reports that are requiring action. Again, I'm met with a similar table where I see the calendar year for which the supply report is due. And I see that HSP Producer 3, which is my account, is responsible for these supply reports. I can go ahead and continue an in-progress supply report, or go ahead and click on Start for a new supply report. So I'll go ahead and click Start for the 2023 Jan to December supply report. So this supply report is for the HSP program, so I will be directly landed onto the supply data page. However, for a PPP program, you would first land onto the the page where you are asked for the annual gross revenue, and based on your threshold, you would either be exempt or you can continue into the supply data page for the PPP program. So in this scenario, I will go ahead and add any volumes for the supply reporting. So I'm going to add a volume for the single-use batteries and also the rechargeable batteries in this scenario. I can go ahead and leave some of these as blank if I do not have anything to report for those products, or add a 0 value. In the case that I do not have any designated material that I need to report for that current year, I can go ahead and click this checkbox, which will change all the values for the designated material to 0. I can go ahead and click Next. So this is where I will land onto the brand information page. So the brand information page, you can go through the instructions as to how to fill in the template for the brand information. This is the link where you can click and download the brand template. which you can update and upload back into our documents. You can go ahead and click on attach documents and go ahead and add the brand information template. Once template is added, I can click on next and proceed to our next step. So this is where I would add my third-party verification. So for the current year, for 2024, the third-party verification is waived, and this is where you can go ahead and download the attestation form if you are not providing the third-party verification. I do have the document for the third-party verification, so I can go ahead and attach the document for the third-party verification. So I'll go ahead and attach that. For the next section over here, if you charge a visible fee with respect to the supply of a designated material, you would need to go ahead and answer yes to this question. Once you answer yes, you will be required to add the audited financial statement document, which I can go ahead and attach through this attach documents component. Once that is done, I can go ahead and click next for proceeding to the next step. Okay. So before I submit, I do get a confirmation page where I can verify all the details that I added for the designated material, the documents that I have uploaded. I can go ahead and verify all this information is correct, and I can confirm the checkbox and go ahead and submit supply report. Upon submission, I am again given a confirmation page that my supply report has been submitted. So you can see the status of submitted and the timestamp as to when I submitted the supply report. I can also verify these numbers that I provided in the supply report and see if everything is correct. I'll go ahead and return to my home page. So with that is the supply reporting process for a supply report. Another thing to note that once your supply report is submitted, that is in the scenario where you are working with pros or you're doing the supply report yourself, if all the supply reports are submitted for that calendar year, you would receive an email which shows you the aggregate volumes that were submitted for that calendar year. I can go ahead and quickly pull up that email to show you how it looks like. So here I can see that for another producer that I was working with, that is producer 5, has received this email talking about the total volumes that were submitted for calendar year 2022 and all the responsible parties who did the supply reporting on their behalf. So with that, that wraps up the scenarios for supply reporting. I'll pass it back to you, Victor.
Thank you so much, Tanuj. So as we wrap up the demo session for today's webinar, we just want to quickly review the upcoming steps for you as producers. So our system enhancement is scheduled to be implemented on April 22nd. The most immediate action at that time really is to confirm your delegation preferences are correctly updated in the system. As demonstrated in the webinar today, this process is straightforward and is essential to direct your supply reports appropriately. The deadline for updating that delegation is May 31st, and that is because starting June 1st, depending on what that delegation is set, that is what generates all of the supply reports in the system, allowing you to supply them and fulfill your EPR obligations for 2024. And we really want you to make sure you are well supported to utilize the system's capabilities to ensure a smooth submission process. I know many of you have already registered within our system. So we have held off on activating all of our registrations, just knowing the enhancement is coming out in just under 3 weeks' time. So a lot of what Tanuj showed today in the demo, in that homepage, that will be available once your producer registration is activated. And just to avoid any accidental changes you may want to update that will get lost during the system update, we have decided to held off on the producer activation. If you do want to update anything, for example, like your pro delegations ahead of time, please do email us, and we are happy to do that manually for you in the backend in the time being. Otherwise, it will be available on April 22nd. Next slide, please. So before we transition into the Q&A portion, I just want to draw your attention to the various resources we do have available publicly on our website, as well as a few that's coming soon. And these are really aimed to assist you in navigating the EPR system here in Alberta. All of our resources will be posted and available on our website for your convenience. So we will have a supply report guide as well as a pro delegation guide. And these really outline the step-by-step process for what we have shown you today in the system, as well as providing you further details on what each piece of information we ask and why we need them. These documents will be released along with our system update on April 22nd, ensuring you have all the information needed to complete your reporting accurately and efficiently. And the other thing I'll draw your attention to would be the verification procedure that is already available on our website. This provides a detailed explanation on what third-party verification is required. But once again, that will be a requirement for next year. For this year, we will have an attestation form available on our website. So with that being said, we can now transition to questions. If you go to the next slide. Just because a lot of our questions you won't be able to see once the webinar ends, I'll just read out some of the ones we have already answered. In the meantime, please, if you do have a question, feel free to type it in the Q&A, and we'll try to get to all of them today if possible. So some questions. ARMA oversight fee, is that like the RIPRA registry fee in Ontario? So yes, the ARMA oversight fee is very similar to the RIPRA registry fee. We are the delegated regulator on behalf of the government of Alberta. So our fee is the cost for us to administer the regulatory activities on behalf of the government of Alberta. Next question. If ARMA requires PPP report to also be verified, I did touch on this one. So we have waived this requirement for 2024. So this is not necessary for this year, and it is the attestation form instead. But this will be ongoing starting from next year. Would there be a fee paid to ARMA for HSP, even though it's sold and used by the ICI sector? So the Alberta regulation for HSP looks at size for what's included and excluded in the HSP program rather than residential versus commercial use. There is a chance that there is ICI material that falls within that size for the program. So if that's the case, then those materials would be expected to be reported, and there would be a fee associated to those. So our registration for both program remains pending. Yeah, so we are in the process of, so we are actively reviewing all of the registrations. If there is additional information we need, we will reach out. But until April 22nd, it will remain in that pending status while we get our system ready for the enhancement. Why would the producer and pro need to submit the supply reports? So we try to make the system as flexible as possible. So you certainly don't need both parties to submit, but we are trying to account for the scenario where you may want to submit certain designated materials versus the pro. If that's the case, that might be one scenario where that gets used. We submit our supply report to the pro, who then provides it to ARMA. So do we check yes or no for producer supplies report? So if the pro is going to submit the supply report on your behalf, you want to make sure for that specific pro, they have the supply report set to yes. But for your individual reporting obligations, it would then be set to no. question around when will we know other pros that are available to service producers in Alberta for packaging? So for both PPP and HSP, so we have 3 pros total that have successfully registered in Alberta. We do have a significant due diligence process to make sure that the pros are in alignment with both our regulations, our bylaws, and our policies and procedures. So there is currently 1 active pro in PPP, which is circular materials. There are 2 active pros in HSP, Call to Recycle, who focuses on battery recycling, and Product Care Recycling, who focuses on the hazardous products, the other 4 categories. So our due diligence process does include a number of factors, including the pros or the candidates' business activities. And really, this process is there to make sure that we meet with the expectations of the government of Alberta and that all of the pros are compliant with the regulation. So we have received applications from other pros to register in the province. And of course, these will go through the same due diligence as the pros that's already approved. So at this time, we have not approved any other pros beyond the 3 pros that are active in the system. So while all of them do undergo the due diligence process, the period to complete that process is different. But as soon as any other pros are approved, we do post them on our website, and they will be available in the system. How much is the fee for ARMA? So our oversight fee will be undergoing consultation in the fall. So we are currently doing our fee development today. And of course, our fee will be based on the supply report data that comes in June. So public consultation will happen in the fall, most likely around the September, October, to ensure US producers does have the time to know what the expected fee could be so that you can budget appropriately for the following year. Will there be conversion factors for corrosive flammable product like Ripper has? Currently, we don't have any conversion factors. We do allow the producer to use whatever factor that is best for them. You are certainly able to use what Ripper has as their conversion factor and indicate in your verification document when that is active, and stating that that is the conversion factor you used, and that will be fine from our end. We are going to be actively developing our own, but due to the compressed timeline, we don't have them available as the standard today. Question around visible fee document. What is the visible fee document? And the invoice show a separate line item. So within the bylaw, any visible fee that would be on the receipt. So a current example would be something like the for bottles, right? There is that bottle, the deposit fee, environmental fee. So if you do show a visible fee on the receipt for a consumer, that is the fee we're talking about. And for any visible fees, we do require the financial audit statement. So this is to ensure that we understand how that visible fee is collected and what it's being used for. If you don't have a visible fee for your receipts, then there is no requirement to us. But that is what that one is. Is the audited statement required in 24 or starting in 25 with the verification report? So if you're referring to the audited financial statement, that is only applicable if you have a visible fee. So if that is not the case, then you do not need to have an audited financial statement as part of your verification report. Alberta EPR is 100% producer-run system from the get-go, or is it a gradual transition like Ontario? So it is 100% producer-run system. The supply reporting is for both HSP. So there's a question on whether the supply reporting is for HSP. The answer would be yes, it's for both. So both PPP and HSP supply reports are due June 30th. There's a question around specific products. If so, for that case, please just send us an email at epr@albertarecycling.ca. We are happy to help you understand and determine which product designated material category the product might fall under. Following question. We pick circular material as our pro for ARMA. Do we need to report to you and them or them only? So if you would like circular material to submit your supply report on your behalf, as long as that delegation is set in the system, then they will report for you on your behalf. So when you sign your agreement with circular material, my understanding with CM specifically is you would indicate what you would like them to fulfill for your obligations. And then with that, they would then, as long as the system has that set up, they would be able to submit that for you on your behalf. So you would actually, you won't have to do anything in our system, but you will receive notification via email, letting you know that your reporting obligation has been filled once circular material submits the supply report. Next question. When will fee be assessed? Where the fee table based on packaging material? So our fee methodology is still being developed. So the public will have an opportunity to provide feedback on what the fee table looks like. And that consultation will be starting in the fall for us. Can you clarify the required documents if you use visible fees? Is there a specific fee verification procedure, or do we actually mean audit the financial statement for your company? So if you could just send us an email at EPR@Alberta Recycling, we can provide you some additional details on that one specifically. I have not seen any mention of the designated consumer type that starts the obligation, where and to whom supply to. I think you might be, if I understand that question correctly, you might be referring to our hierarchy. So whether it's the brand owner, the importer, or retailer. So the regulation does dictate for each material or consumer good, whether the brand owner is a resident in Canada versus an importer versus a retailer. If that's the clarification you're looking for, please do send us the email. We're happy to help you determine whether you or another party will be the obligated party to report. Please confirm that we report total weight of the products for HSP. Therefore, these products do not fall into the PPP program. Yeah, so if it does fall under the designated material for HSP, then it should be HSP program. I will say the only caveat potentially to that is any secondary packaging that may be actually packaging material. So if you have a hazardous product that has some form of packaging that you ship the material in, then those would fall into the PPP program. So it would really depend on how that product is supplied to the consumer. And if you are unsure, we are happy to help you make sure that you meet all of the requirements. Can you please review the requirements for exempt producers? What activities are required to complete? So at time of registration, so for PPP, there are two types of exemptions. For HSP, there are no exemptions for producers. So specifically for PPP, you can be exempt if your revenue threshold is under 1.5 million. And that is not just for designated material, that would be for the province. And the second exemption would be the material threshold, which are different for each designated material category. So depending on the material you supply into the province, each one does have a separate, I think off the top of my head is 9 tons for paper, 2 tons for flexible and rigid plastic, and 1 ton for metal and glass. So if you do think you are under the designated material threshold for all materials you do supply into the province, that would be the exemption. But there is still a reporting obligation for depending on which exemption status you met. If you are exempt under the revenue threshold, there is a potential for us to audit financial statements to ensure that you are indeed exempt. If you are under the material threshold, but over the revenue threshold, there is still an obligation to report. So depending on what that looks like, you might have different requirements, and we are happy to go over that further. So for reporting, you mentioned volumes, but the tool says kilograms. if we're reporting weights in kilograms, do we include only the total packaging weight or the gross weight? So if we're talking specifically the container plus the hazardous material is reported as one per material category. So if it's a flammable product, for example, you would report both the container weight as well as the material weight that's in that container. But if we're talking packaging for the product, that potentially might be under the PPP material category. And we are happy to help you clarify that as needed. Can you provide more information on third-party verification for PPP? Are there chosen third parties and will producers sign up for that service? Yeah, so we do have our third-party verification procedure available on our website. But at a high level, the third-party verifier, we take a designation approach. So we have indicated certain professional designations that can do the third-party verification. This is a service that most pros will most likely offer, but if you have that designation in-house, it is something we do allow you to complete by yourself if that's what you choose. What happens if a producer does not meet the June 30th reporting deadline? Then it would be in breach of the regulation. Of course, understanding the timeline, we are trying to work with all producers to make sure they can meet that deadline as close as possible. So if you do have concerns, please do reach out to us on what those concerns are. What happens if we're not able to produce HSP data in weights? Our system report has been quantities. So we do recognize there may be certain conversion factors certain producers need to do. We will develop a conversion tool eventually, but there are conversion tools available. I know some producers mentioned if they're able to use the Ripper one. So that is one option. Or if you have other conversion factors you'd like to propose, all of those are something we can discuss with you. Next one, for attestation and verification audit forms, would there only be available at the time of the reporting period? So our attestation form will be available on the website. And I think the verification audit, that might be the financial statement you're referring to. That's something if you are planning on doing, please do reach out to us on that one. Even though it's B2B transaction, so there's a question around business-to-business transaction, you still need visible fees document and it's audited. I think depending on the program you're referring to, so PPP, would be consumer specific. HSP is a bit different, but if you could please email us with the specific scenario, we're happy to take a look. So how do we know procedure on classification? If we have a flammable solvent, does that fall under HSP? So please do send us an email if you do have product clarification. I will say for any existing stewardship products, they are going to remain within the stewardship programs. But please do reach out to us if you do have specific questions. Is there a minimum exemption for HSP? HSP does not have a material exemption. Please report answer on HSP reported numbers being excluded from PPP supply report. So if the product is an HSP product falling under the designated material, then that should be reported within HSP. The only scenario where you might need to report something in PPP is due to things like secondary packaging. So if you're shipping something directly to a consumer in a cardboard box, right, that piece would be considered PPP designated material. I know we have some more questions, but I'm just looking at our time. I am running out of time. Our team is going to be taking all these questions down. If you do worry, we might not get to your question, or because I know we might not have all the emails, especially for anonymous attendees. Please do email us your question at EPR@Alberta Recycling. But just be mindful of everyone's time. I'm just going to pass it back to Kayla to close out today's webinar.
Thanks so much, Victor, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. It was a really great conversation. There were really a lot of great questions coming in, so we really appreciate your participation. As mentioned at the top, this recording from the session will be available later this week on the ARMA website for those who would like to revisit the conversation. And for additional EPR information, the ARMA website is a fantastic resource, and you can connect directly with the EPR team at the email on the screen right now. Thank you again for joining us, and please again send any of those questions to the EPR team, and they'll be sure to follow up with you. Thanks so much, everyone. Goodbye.